You've seen the videos. Dog destroys couch. Dog eats the blinds. Dog howls at the door for 3 hours straight. That gets the views. That gets the attention. But the largest group of dogs struggling with separation, the ones veterinary behaviorists worry about most, do none of that. They lie down. They stare at the wall. They barely move. And their owners come home to a clean house and think everything is fine. It's not fine. And what's going on inside those dogs changes how you should think about every single time you walk out that door. Because researchers have now mapped what happens inside your dog's brain when you leave, minute by minute, hormone by hormone. And the first thing they discovered is that it starts before you've even reached for the door. Most of the conversation around departure cues focuses on keys and shoes and jackets. You've probably heard that already. But there's a layer underneath those signals that you can't fake, and your dog reads it before any of the visible cues even begin. Researchers in Italy collected sweat samples from people who had just watched frightening videos and presented those samples to dogs who had never met them. Zero history with these humans, just molecules on a cotton pad. The dogs' heart rates went up, stress behaviors increased, and they pulled away from the unfamiliar person in the room. A 2024 follow-up pushed it further. Dogs who smelled human stress sweat became measurably more pessimistic. Researchers placed a food bowl in an ambiguous location, somewhere between where a dog had learned to expect a treat and where they'd learned to expect nothing. Dogs who'd been exposed to stress scent were significantly less likely to even investigate. Human anxiety didn't just register in their body, it shifted how they interpreted their entire environment. That's a stranger's scent on a cotton pad in a controlled lab. Your dog lives in a house saturated with yours. And every Monday morning, the rushing, the tightness in your jaw, the low-level tension you carry into the start of the week, it's being broadcast on a channel your dog has been tuned into for years. By the time you reach for your bag, their nervous system is already responding to something you didn't even know you were sending. That's the chemical environment they start their alone time in. And what happens next is fast. The door closes. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, hits its peak in saliva within 5 minutes of the owner leaving. Researchers in South Korea measured it by sampling 28 dogs every 5 minutes after departure. Not a gradual build, a spike, right at the start. Heart rate jumps the instant the latch clicks. And an Italian study that filmed 23 dogs with clinical separation problems captured what that spike looks like in behavior. Average time to first vocalization, 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Average time to first destructive act, 7 minutes and 8 seconds. That's the crisis window. Most of the chewing, scratching, pacing and barking happens in the first 10 to 15 minutes. Everything in their system is pushing them toward you, and they're throwing whatever they have at the problem. Then something shifts. Around the 15 to 30 minute mark, barking often decreases. If you just felt relieved hearing that, the next part matters. What replaces the barking is panting. Not calm, not settling. The arousal is just going internal. Quiet dogs aren't always calm dogs. Sometimes they're the ones whose protest ran out of steam before the stress did. Veterinary behaviorists at the MSPCA use 15 minutes as a clinical line. A dog who settles by then is generally managing. A dog still locked on the door at 40 minutes is dealing with something that won't resolve on its own, no matter how many times you leave. And here's where the diagnosis gets more complicated than anyone on the internet makes it sound. A research team at the University of Lincoln analysed nearly 3,000 dogs across more than 100 breeds and found that separation problems aren't one condition, they're at least 4. Some dogs are frustrated, they want to follow and can't, so they direct that energy at the door. Others are reactive, triggered by sounds or movement outside the house while you're gone. A smaller group is bored, understimulated, burning energy because there's nothing else to do. But the largest group, 53%, fell into a category the researchers called reactive inhibited, quiet, withdrawn, depression-like. These dogs don't bark, don't destroy, don't scratch. They shut down. Their owners described them as easy, low maintenance, independent. The researchers described them as the most likely to go completely undetected. The lead researcher was blunt. He said, "Separation anxiety isn't a diagnosis, it's the beginning of a diagnostic process. And the frustration driving most of these cases looks nothing like what you'd expect. A whining dog who doesn't bark is likely afraid. A barking dog clawing at the door is likely frustrated. Same label, completely different neurology, completely different treatment. And the 53% who do nothing visible? They're the ones whose stress shows up in their body instead of their behavior. Somewhere between 30 minutes and 2 hours of being alone, your dog's brain crosses a line that nobody talks about. A researcher in Sweden left 12 beagles alone for 30 minutes, 2 hours, and 4 hours. During the separation itself, the dog's behavior across all 3 durations looked roughly the same. The difference showed up when the owner came back. After 2 hours, tail wagging tripled compared to the 30-minute group. Physical contact seeking tripled. Lip licking nearly tripled. And first-minute heart rate at reunion hit 127 beats per minute after 2 hours versus 106 after 30 minutes. But between 2 hours and 4, barely any change. There's a perceptual wall somewhere in that window where the brain stops categorizing the absence as brief and starts categorizing it as long. After that, more time doesn't make it worse. A later study extended observations to 6 hours and found cortisol actually peaked at 4 hours, then dipped at 6, suggesting the body eventually gives up trying to sustain the alarm. That's not calm, that's exhaustion. What this means practically is that the difference between a 45-minute errand and a 3-hour absence is enormous to your dog's brain. But the difference between 4 hours and 8 barely registers. They've already crossed. Once they're past the wall, they're just waiting. This next part is where the science is moving fastest, and it changes how you should think about the quiet dogs. Your dog's gut and brain are connected by the vagus nerve, a direct two-way highway between the brainstem and the intestines. When cortisol spikes during separation, it speeds up gut motility. That's the stress diarrhea some dogs get after boarding or long stretches alone. It also degrades the lining of the intestinal wall and kills off specific bacteria that help regulate mood. In a study of shelter dogs, researchers found that gut bacteria composition could separate anxious dogs from non-anxious dogs before any behavioral observation was done. The microbiome flagged the problem before the behavior did. In 2025, a randomized placebo-controlled trial tested a bacterial strain called LP815 in 40 dogs living in normal homes. 4 weeks, anxiety scores dropped significantly, aggression dropped, sleep patterns stabilized, and the researchers tracked it with continuous activity monitors strapped to collars, not owner questionnaires. A separate team studying dogs with drug-resistant epilepsy tried fecal microbiota transplants, essentially rebuilding the gut ecosystem from scratch. They expected fewer seizures. What they got instead was a dramatic improvement in anxiety, fear, and hyperactive behaviors. The behavior change was the part nobody predicted. This means the stress of daily separation doesn't just live in your dog's brain, it cycles through their gut. Chronic cortisol damages the intestinal lining. The damaged gut stops producing calming chemicals it normally would, and the brain gets more anxious, which spikes cortisol again. It feeds itself. That dog with the sensitive stomach, the recurring skin flare-ups, the ear infections that keep coming back, those might not be unrelated conditions. They might be the long-term cost of separation stress expressing itself through the body, quietly, in a dog who never once chewed a shoe. And the damage doesn't stop when you walk back in. That's the part that surprised me. A 2025 study attached EEG electrodes to dogs to measure brain activity during sleep. Dogs who had been separated from their owners, even those who showed no visible distress during the absence, took significantly longer to fall asleep. Their sleep efficiency dropped, and they spent less time in deep non-REM sleep, the phase where the brain consolidates memory and repairs itself. The dog looked fine during the day, settled within 15 minutes, no barking, no destruction. But that night, their brain was still processing the absence. The stress signature was written into their sleep architecture hours after the owner was already home. This flips the assumption that a calm-looking dog had a calm day. Their behavior recovered before their neurology did. And if this is happening daily, the sleep disruption compounds. Less deep sleep means less emotional regulation the next day, which means the next separation hits a brain that's already running behind. The quiet dog isn't just potentially suffering in the moment, they might be accumulating a neurological debt that builds over weeks and months without a single visible symptom. So what does your dog actually need from you in all of this? The 5-minute window is the crisis. Everything after that is shaped by what happened in those first minutes. If your dog can regulate by 15 minutes, their system is working. If they can't, this isn't something that improves with repetition. It escalates. The 2-hour wall means a quick errand and a half-day absence live in completely different categories inside your dog's brain. If you can break a long day with even a brief midday check-in, you're resetting the clock before they hit the wall. That's not a small thing. That's the difference between 2 separate short separations and 1 long one. The gut connection means chronic separation stress might be showing up in vet visits you'd never connect to your morning departure. If your dog has recurring digestive issues, skin problems, or immune responses that don't respond to dietary changes, it's worth considering whether their body is carrying something their behavior never showed you. And the sleep data means that what looks like recovery at reunion might not be full recovery at all. Your dog's brain continues processing the separation for hours after you're home. Keeping the evening calm, keeping stimulation low before bed, and letting them settle near you while they sleep isn't coddling. It's giving their nervous system the conditions it needs to actually finish recovering from the day. Every morning you leave, your dog's brain runs this entire sequence. The spike, the shift, the wall, the gut, the invisible sleep cost. And every evening, when you come home, their system starts the process of undoing all of it. But only if the conditions are right. And now you know what those conditions actually are. If this changed how you think about your dog's day, subscribe. We go deeper than anyone else on the science behind your dog's behavior every single week.